Welcome everyone to our 5-minute Bible study of Exodus chapter 38. We do these studies every day if the Lord wills, and we are trying to go through the entire Bible. Today, Exodus 38, free PDF down in the description. Same notes that I'm reading off of. No secrets here. When did the events of this chapter take place? We know that the children of Israel got out of slavery in Egypt about 1491 BC. Now, we also know that the Tabernacle, which is a special building that was going to be the place where God's presence would dwell among his people, this was being built as we go through these chapters. We know that it was finished 1 year after the Israelites left Egypt. So we're somewhere probably in between 6 months after they left Egypt and a year at this point as we're discussing these things. Our characters are the same as they've been for the last couple chapters. We've got Moses. He's the leader and God's representative to the Israelites. We've got the Israelites, who are the large nation of people that have grown from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob's children. And then we've got Bezalel and Aholiab. These are two men who are specially gifted by the Spirit of God to build the holy items that were going to be in the tabernacle. Where did these events take place? Well, it appears that Moses received the instructions for the tabernacle up on Mount Sinai. He then went down the mountain, gave those instructions to the children of Israel, and the tabernacle and all its pieces were constructed while the children of Israel were encamped at Sinai. Jumping over to page 2, we are going to go through our outline. The first section here is the making of the bronze altar and the bronze basin. So all the pieces of the tabernacle are still being constructed. If you want the beginning of this discussion, go back to the last chapter, because a bunch of things were built there too, including the Ark of the Covenant, the altar of incense, and some other things. So verses 1 through 7, the making of the bronze altar and the bronze basin. Bezalel, this guy who's especially gifted in the ability to craft these holy items, he made the altar of burnt offering, as it's called, which was to sit in the court of the tabernacle. So not in the tabernacle directly, but on the outside of the tent structure. It was to be made of acacia wood and overlaid with, not gold this time, it was supposed to be overlaid with bronze. The altar was 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide, and 3 cubits tall. Bezalel made all of the utensils that were going to be used in the sacrifices at the altar out of bronze. That was the pots, the shovels, the basins, and probably some other things as well. Like many of the other items in the tabernacle, rings were affixed to the corner of the altar so that it could be carried on 2 poles. Bezalel also made the bronze basin and its stand, and he made them from, quote, the mirrors of the ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of meeting. Right, so it was made out of mirrors. And hold that thought because we'll come back to it for our application section. In verses 8 through 20, we're going to talk about making the outer court of the tabernacle. So this was the courtyard that surrounded the tent structure. The north side of the outer boundary of the court of the tabernacle was made with 100 cubits of fine twined linen and 20 bronze pillars. The south side was exactly the same as the north. The west and the east side were constructed of 50 cubits of linen and 10 pillars of bronze. The east side, though, included a 20-cubit screen or a gate for entering the tabernacle complex. So that's very abstract when you just read it. If you want to see what that would look like on a little diagram that's to scale, I've got one on the PDF for the last chapter, chapter 37. And you can see the outer boundary that surrounds the tabernacle proper on there. And then finally in this chapter, verses 21 through 31, we have a summary of the metals that were used in the construction of the tabernacle, which is kind of an interesting section. This first note that I have here is really just more for your reference, not something that's spelled out in this text, but the shekel, the mina, and the talent that are mentioned here, they are weights of weight measurements, kind of like our pounds or kilograms or grams. A talent weighed approximately 66 pounds or 30.2 kilograms. There's some debate about that, but it seems like the consensus is generally there. 66 pounds or 30 kilograms for a talent. That talent was then divided into 60 minas, and each mina was divided into 60 shekels. Okay, so you can come back and reference that later if you can't remember. 29 talents of gold and 730 shekels of gold were used in the construction of the tabernacle. So 29 times 66, there's a lot of gold being used here. 100 talents of silver and 1,775 shekels of silver were used for the project. So yes, this is a tent, but it's quite an extravagant tent. And so that is Exodus chapter 38. Remember, there is a helpful diagram on the PDF from last chapter. Now for our application. If you remember, up in the first section, we talked about those ladies who gave up their mirrors so that bronze could be used to create the bronze basin. I think their actions are worth noticing and worth mimicking. In giving up their mirrors, they were taking their eyes off of themselves and turning them towards the things of God. I think that's worthy of application in the sense that we could probably all spend less time looking at ourselves and being concerned with ourselves, and more time reflecting on ways to contribute to the service of the Lord.